long gone are the days where in ArcMap to look for a tool, when you were searching for it, you had to put the exact word, the exact spelling to be able to find the exact tool that you already knew existed. You may not know the name of the toolbox, but you might be able to explain it in your own words.
This podcast is brought to you by the team at Boustead Geospatial Productions, in conjunction with our affiliates Esri Australia, Esri Singapore, Esri Malaysia and Esri Indonesia. To get your hands on more geospatial tips and tricks, subscribe now and be the first to know when a new episode is released.
Welcome to GIS Directions. I'm Mary Murphy.
And I'm Ta Taneka.
And here we are at it again, Ta, with another series and another UC wrap-up episode.
It's series 4. It's great to be back. We're talking about all of the latest and greatest from the UC. And I'm very, very excited about this episode in particular.
I wonder why, because helping us kick off today is our critical infrastructure expert and, for me, fellow WA resident, Mr. Tom Gardner. Welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Thanks so much for inviting me. Excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. Welcome, Tom. It is about time. We've worked together for so long, so it's great to have you on this side of the fence. Now, look, you're here today because you were one of the lucky ones able to head over to San Diego for the Esri UC this year. What was it like? Was it your first time? What was the atmosphere like? Did you get to hug Jack? What happened?
I got to stand next to Jack and give him a hug. Yeah, photographic evidence to prove it. But yeah, look, it was just amazing, amazing, Taylor. Look, it's actually my second time attending the user conference, but last time was 18 years ago. So things have changed a bit.
Well, considering you have so much in that head we need to get through, let's get into it. Ta, we'll start with trends. What trends stood out to you this year's UC?
Okay, I'm going to cap myself at 3, okay? I've really thought about this. Okay, so my 3 trends: new technology, so all the new updates and things that have happened, incorporating user feedback, so what are the things that the user community and us have been asking for, and finally, future-focused technology, really important, I think, for the climate that we're in on a global scale. What about you?
Ooh, same thing. I really had to think about this. The first one is around WebGIS and enterprise. So obviously the theme for this year was GIS uniting our world. But so that connection, collaboration, and community, very much the key drivers for engagement and innovation in the tech and what we want to do with it. So they're very, very important. And they kind of wove their way through every session in some way, shape, or form that I listened and watched. Yeah. The second one then is a little bit of a notification that it's time to start dabbling in 3D. I think Jack said 3D is in everyone's future. Does that mean we have to get up to speed with all things 3D? Absolutely not. But you don't say things like that lightly. And I think that's very important. A few years ago, we were with the analytics side of things telling people, look, get in there, see if you can actually work with some of those things to enhance your methods, your workflows, your engagement techniques, and so on. It's the same with the 3D. Jump in, check out the tools, see if it will help you in your kit of tools to engage with your audience, to communicate with them, to understand your data, your process, your phenomenon. And that might be just a very simple visual, could make a massive difference, right up to those people who are making those full-blown 3D systems of record that we were hearing about. And then the third one that I came across was the lowering the barriers to entry. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart. So this is for both key workflows and concepts. So what we're doing is using different types of techniques, be it wizards, tools, how we're talking about the products and so on. And then in the world of AI, what we're doing is opening and lowering those barriers to entry for those particular things and letting our brains focus on where we want them to focus the most, which is on the job at hand. Tom, how about you? How do our reads as people who are at the virtual sessions, how do they stack up against you and your experience on the ground?
You're right on point there, Mary and Tar. The virtual sessions were great. Being there in person was even better. I kind of had 3 big takeaways or themes that I picked up over the conference. First of all, remodeling licensing. Esri's put a lot of effort into simplifying and providing kind of an easier, kind of almost a spectrum of licensing that's a lot easier to understand and work with users across the whole spectrum of capability. And what Esri's done there as well is they've actually added in a whole bundle of joy from my perspective on the Professional Plus, which replaces the old
Pro Advanced. Yeah.
just Professional Advanced. It now comes with 8 extensions, including Image Analyst, Spatial, 3D, Geostats, and Network. So all of a sudden, the analytical powers that you have at your fingertips and all those users that had Advanced now have that ready to use and leverage, which is fantastic. The second one was really around that whole integration space, and GIS without it integrating to other systems and data is almost just a pretty map making tool. And we've got so many opportunities with that. And one of the ones that was showcased there was Microsoft's integration, and Esri's got a lot of native integration into the Microsoft stack, including coming up is Esri's releasing the work that they've been doing with Microsoft on the actual Microsoft Fabric.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And you also touched on that whole AI world, geo AI, so the actual using analytics to improve the actual spatial analytics for users, but also the AI assistants. And there were some really great examples of how to kind of bring skills and capabilities that we hadn't seen before that the users could leverage off the knowledge base that Esri's created over the years to actually improve capability.
Yeah, it's great to see the AI assistants coming down the road. There was a couple of excellent demos in the cartography space. I think it was an ArcGIS Online example where they were using the assistant to help make the map, visualize the data to make the map. Fantastic. Long gone are the days where in ArcMap to look for a tool, when you were searching for it, you had to put the exact word, the exact spelling to be able to find the exact tool that you already knew existed, right? And then when we moved to Pro, that search capability was, one of those big things that's a little change, but it's a big deal. That made it easier to find the tools, because if I accidentally spelt the tool wrong, which I always do, I could still find the tool. Now we're moving on to being able to say, I'm not sure what the tool is called. I might be completely new to this. I wanted to do this. Tell me which tools might help me do that. And I love that because, again, like I said, lowering the barriers to entry. You may not know the name of the toolbox, but you might be able to explain it in your own words.
Now, speaking of that, Mary, you have wandered into familiar and very fun territory. Okay, let's jump in. Let's talk tech. Let's talk about what sessions. I know, Tom, you were there, so you got to attend the plenary, the technical sessions, maybe some closed sessions. When I watched everything digitally from the comfort of my living room, I was able to focus on ArcGIS Pro and ArcGIS Online. So I would like to start with the enhancement added to ArcGIS Pro by popular demand, which is the classified data undersized by attribute. It was a popular request from ArcMap. Esri listened and they've added it to ArcGIS Pro. It just makes a beautiful addition, a lot of familiar workflows and capabilities that we can then carry on in this next generation of desktop. I also loved the copy and paste properties from one layer to another using the copy and paste properties option in the right-click context menu. Something really simple. So this copies across symbology and pop-ups and labels and more from one layer to another. So you don't have to, create style files and things. You can just quickly copy and paste and apply those. And I talked a little bit about, in the latest release of ArcGIS Pro, they changed the group type from checkbox to radio buttons. Now, this might seem like something small, but it is a game changer. I found that, it enables you to easily change the data you're viewing. So instead of all the checkbox being selected in a group, you select each individual radio button of the categorized data that you want to view. So imagine you're creating a thematic map series afterwards, you have your specific radio group, and it's just showing you all the visualized data. Probably my favorite bit of everything, future-proofing our world. Now, as someone who has been fairly heavily involved in a lot of emergency management, public safety, I really found the flood modeling simulation tools delivered by Australia's very own Nathan Shepherd. They were just mind-blowing and phenomenal. So they help to mitigate future risks. So you can flood existing conditions. You add a simulation layer type, which is new, and then you use currently rendered views to define a scenario, enabling users to select a simplified model, for example, how water would move and accumulate in a scenario, and then you simulate in those areas what the water would look like over time. Couple of things to remember for this. The simulation runs on visualized 3D views and it uses simplified mathematics. So this is really great for geodesign. So when you have your GIS team, particularly in planning and infrastructure, if you're thinking of, future scenarios for your reconstruction efforts, sit with your geodesign team and your engineers, simulate these things, work together to work out future solutions. So great for geodesign, and then consult further for engineering. It's the first release of simulation in ArcGIS Pro at 3.3, so I can't imagine what's coming up next. Tom, I'd love to hear more about what you actually saw while you were on the ground.
You mentioned, Tara, the web editing and the web space, and that comes back to that whole progressive capability that Esri is rolling out for users and licensing. We've had web editing before, but where the web editing is going is really, really improving and almost taking on and borrowing the capabilities that ArcGIS Pro has and enabling that for users that don't need to have the desktop to do actual editing in the browser. And there's a lot of great demos that we're showing there, but what's really coming down the path and coming soon are things such as dealing with tracing, looking at managing and dealing with true curves, actually extending, trimming, copying and parallel, even branch versioning in the browser, and 3D editing, and even greater kind of capabilities in snapping. And that's like browser-based editing. So we can see that this is actually almost bringing that editing capability to the masses or to a much greater group without having to have your desktop GIS there.
Well, with the pattern moving away from desktop, not completely away from desktop, we'll always have a need, right? But we are moving to that web GIS. Exactly the first thing we spoke about, one of my trends was the web GIS and enterprise side of things. There's a need to meet the users where their needs are with the technology, the capabilities, and editing is a foundational capability in the GIS world. So we need to be able to enable that workflow in the WebGIS enterprise world. So it's a really cool application. I am very excited about it, and I cannot wait till we get to talk to the team about it.
Mary, you just said something that reminded me of my favorite tagline as I was watching the plenary, and that's, we get to work with the same data and maps across all applications, across the entire ArcGIS ecosystem for easy collaboration. So just listening to what you're saying, to what Tom's saying, I'm just like, oh my gosh, it really harkens to what they've said there is we're making it easier to engage and to collaborate and to use our maps and data and to connect.
To connect, collaborate, and innovate, right?
Exactly.
And that's what we want to do. So a foundational workflow, we need to provide the mechanisms to do that. And the team are excited about it, having chatted with them. What's coming down the pipeline is very exciting. And this is, ground floor. We're getting in here and talking with them on this. And it's cool to see it happen in real time. Sorry, Tom, what else did you pick up?
One of my key areas of interest is really in that whole GIS, BIM, CAD and 3D space.
Yeah.
I managed to have the opportunity, bit of a fanboy of Gert and Andreas. Caught up with the two of them. Obviously, Gert was on the big stage presenting some of his 3D tools. There was a fantastic session, if you get to see it, that Andreas and Gert actually went through how they prepared that demo and all the different information about bringing BIM models in, bringing in the 3D buildings, and also even doing kind of 3D tracing and network analysis within the browser and within the 3D space. And that's where I see a lot of kind of tying back into that whole story of 3D that you were talking about earlier, Mary, is Esri's kind of focus and effort in there. And that 3D actually also transfers over into the dashboard space. So if you remember, like the ArcGIS dashboards has gone 3D. So
Yes.
That's right after my heart. The other thing that got mentioned previously around, we're not just a pro environment, we're not just ArcGIS Online, but ArcGIS Enterprise is like a foundational capability that a lot of our customers have, and was mentioned at the plenary around ArcGIS Velocity, which is Esri's SaaS real-time streaming technology and analytics platform, is moving to enterprise. So I believe that's going into beta at the end of the year. And so I've got a couple of customers that were actually attending that got to speak to the Velocity team around that. What about you, Mary?
So, we've covered a lot of things and things that I would have pulled out of my hat as well. But let's pick these three. The well-architected framework and overview. That session was fantastic. And again, shaking your heads going, Mary, what are you doing touching anything to do with architecture and enterprise? Because, I'm an imagery, I'm a geo, right? So I'm not that person. But for me, like I often tell people, this is a gap for me. This is something that I'm constantly upskilling in, learning, reading about, etc., because I'm not an IT person. And they brought up a really good point in that session that traditionally it may not have been an IT person deploying GIS infrastructure or architecture. And now we need to do a lot more. We need to know a lot more. And I remember having conversations with people about 2 years ago, I think it was, around the need to support people to upskill in this space who are not the IT people. And now we have a lot of IT people who are in this space. So this well-architected framework, this resource that they have put together online, I cannot recommend this enough for an IT people to jump in there and look at the information around setting up the GIS deployment. But even if it's something that you dabble in, are adjacent to, are terrified of, jump in there and have a look at it, because they have a lot of resources. I can actually jump in and start to understand things that, even though I'm not an IT person, there's lots of diagrams, etc. And there's also an excellent accompanying course. And I know there's probably other tutorials and resources coming down the pipeline, but there's a course called The Systems Approach to ArcGIS in the Esri Academy. It's free. It's about 4 hours long. I swear I'm almost finished it. But it is fantastic if this systems of systems of systems of systems thing is really terrifying you, and how it's set up and how we put things together. It's really, really entry level, really accessible information. And then you can jump into the architecture.arcgis.com site to actually see those additional resources. And another thing that they said in that particular session was that there's this knowledge flying around the place around the best practices for architecture and so on. We need to collate that information into one space instead of one gigantic PDF. And that's what they've done here. So I cannot applaud the team more for actually managing to get this together. I think it's 700 pages plus and counting of stuff that they've put together, which is phenomenal. So that information is not going to be lost. It's there, it's a resource, and it's open and accessible. The other one then is the GeoAI in ArcGIS. GeoAI is not new to the world of ArcGIS. It's been around a while. We've been doing a lot of it manually for several years. What's very new is the fact that it's now way more accessible, as we said earlier. We have those deep learning packages that we can download, the pre-trained models. And then if you are tempted or someone who needs to, you can go ahead and you can start to play with those models and tweak them to suit your needs. There's constantly new models being added. Definitely worth reaching out to the team and having a chat around what you would like them to do. But some additional highlights are around LLM support, so large language model support for text AI. They have some foundational models. They're making multimodal AI. There is amazing work in that space at the moment, and the team did a great job on discussing quite a lot of the content there. And then the last one is imagery. The What's New in Imagery session was fantastic, and I could spend all day talking about that. But what I will say that stood out to me in that session is the thermal and hyperspectral enhancements and support. That is something that I personally have worked with quite a lot. So it's great to see those in there. There have been updates to Reality Engine, so they're adding capabilities. And the SAR, the synthetic aperture radar capabilities in Pro, are just growing. And going forward, they said they're going to focus on including the developer and researcher lens in that space. So good news to the data scientists out there. Now, for all of those things and the 3D and the AI and etc., with these additional focuses on those areas, that does not mean that the traditional areas are not being focused on. It just means that they're enhancing and expanding the capabilities in these areas that we now need them to. So that's kind of cool to see. Whew. All right. We've covered a lot there. Ta, with a little bit of time that we have left, dare we terrify everyone and do a speed run for the final few minutes? What are some capabilities new coming our way, ones to watch? What went under the radar?
Oh, there's a beautiful new feature in ArcGIS Pro. You can turn on auto apply when you're making updates to your symbology. So you know how at the moment you go in, you update your symbology, then you have to click apply to see everything how it looks.
Oh, yes.
Now there's a nifty little button. You auto apply, and as you make changes, you see them in real time. It'll save you a couple of seconds. It's a game changer for me. Anyway, I like to do things quick. Speaking of data visualization, layouts. My favorite part of the mapping process is the sharing. So you can use the new thematic map series option to create one layout page for each of your radio layers data categories. So it's all in the same location with the same styling. Now, there's a new function called the fitting strategy that enables any changes made to auto-fit your layout. So let's say you go ahead and you want to change the title of one of the maps. It auto-fits. You don't have to do any fiddling to change the size of the box or any kind of information. You can readjust your map and it all auto-fits. Again, making things a lot simpler and easier. Look, we're not playing anymore, particularly when it comes to these layouts. The ability to insert hyperlinks. I'm going to tell you one thing. I have been waiting for this for the longest time because I like to give context to my maps. I'm sharing a map with Tom about something that I grew up seeing in Zimbabwe. Tom can see it. He can click on a link and say, hey, I can go and see the great Zimbabwe heritage link and this place that Ta's always talking about. Fantastic. It gives beautiful context and information about the maps that we're creating, for more robust context and info.
That one ended up getting applause from the audience.
We're such a bunch of nerds. I would have applauded that too.
It's one of the best things that you see. You see the new things and everyone's like, yeah, finally.
I sat there clapping. I think you would have thought that, I don't know, I won an Olympic gold or something. Okay, something else. We talked a little bit about how, we talked in Esri listened. How long have we been asking for functionality? If we accidentally delete something, how are we going to recover that information? Say it with me, everybody. The recycle bin.
Recycle bin.
Yeah, beautiful new addition in ArcGIS Online. So any deleted content can be restored. So if you have team members who change teams, swap roles, or move on to new opportunities, if their content gets deleted, you have the opportunity as the administrator to always restore that content. And if you're the owner of that data, you can go ahead and restore the content. That's my speed run of all the additional things that I loved from UC.
Tom?
A couple of other areas that came up that we hadn't talked about. Field maps. We haven't really mentioned mobility today, have we?
Mobility.
No, we haven't.
We do have one coming.
Oh, fantastic. So look, Field Maps is coming out with read-only maps, enhanced offline checks in the web designer space, and mobile map package support in the web designer as well.
Fantastic.
So some great improvements there. On the enterprise space, I haven't mentioned Kubernetes. Obviously, we can run enterprise on Windows and Linux and so on, but Kubernetes is really designed for that kind of the microservices space, and the messages coming up from Esri is it's not just for massive big enterprises as well. Right, so we're seeing a lot more use of it, and they've released now image processing and raster analytic capabilities. So it's really kind of improving that capability for Kubernetes for the user base. And from the developer perspective, Esri's kind of re-released their developer environment as the ArcGIS location platform. So that's really, really good to see that out there. Many of you may have noticed some changes if you've got a developer account, or I did, just navigating that change. So that's about it from my side.
Okay, some speedrun stuff, I swear. Model Builder on the web is coming. It's on its way. Apparently it's in active dev and the beta is coming soon, so yay for that. ArcGIS Flight is now available. So ArcGIS Flight is set to replace both SiteScan Flight and SiteScan Flight LE. So it is for, as the name suggests, drone flight planning. And again, it allows you to obviously seamlessly access the GIS content during your flight planning as well, which is fantastic. This is my mobile one, the Survey 123 side of things. The computer vision, that was in a demo, I think in the plenary. Dragging and dropping an image into a survey, having that populate the info for us to jumpstart the capture and data extraction. Give me that, please, soon, because that is excellent. I love that. We have stack support in Pro now as well. That's our spatiotemporal asset catalog. Fantastic for those of us who love our imagery. ArcGIS for Microsoft Planetary Computer, so bringing the tools from ArcGIS to the MPC. And I mean, 3D and dashboards got mentioned. We talked about Recycle Bin, flood simulation, the AI assistance. ArcGIS pipelines in ArcGIS Online is another one as well. So that's the data integration side of things again, Tom. So we can ingest, prepare, and maintain. Works with vector data, tabular data, and you can connect to a lot of different data sources like Amazon S3, Google BigQuery, Snowflake, feature layers, lots of others as well. And I suppose we should, before I throw to you for some final thoughts, Tom, talk about some of the reasons why you were there, which one of was the SAG Awards, right? The Special Achievement in GIS. Want to chime in?
Well, I didn't get an award, but I had the opportunity to go. I had the opportunity to escort one of our clients over there, Arc Infrastructure, who won a SAG award for their situational awareness platform.
Yeah.
So, and that's using GeoEvent. And so they're one of the team that we actually spoke to around velocity and those sorts of things for real-time capabilities. It's a fantastic opportunity, and seeing the view of the user conference through a client's eyes, and the experience they had was fantastic. And the value of being there is literally, oh, you want to talk to that product manager? We'll just go over and speak to them. Everyone was at your fingertips. We even had a special one-on-one meeting with Jack. Talk about massive fanboy moment there.
And you have a great photo as well with Jack.
Yes. I had to get the Jack selfie. So yeah, it was great to have like an Aussie contingent there.
Yeah, and we had a lot of people across the region, right? So we had IDD Tech from here as well, from Australia. For Indonesia, we had SKK Migas, the provincial government of DKI Jakarta. Malaysia, I think we had Alam Flora, DBKL, TNB. And then in Singapore, we had Jurong Ports and URA, the Urban Redevelopment Authority, who also were in the plenary stage with the National Parks Board, NParks. I mean, if there's a showcase you need to watch, that's definitely one of them as well, right? Just as a plenary discussion quickly as well, there were so many amazing quotable moments throughout the plenary. And Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, now VP candidate, but he said, we are the ancestors of future generations. And considering the theme of this year's UC was uniting our world, I thought that was a nice one to pull out and just really make you stop and think.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think that's time. That is it for today. Thank you very much for joining us, Tom. It was great to finally have you on the podcast. Hopefully it's not the last time. Thank you for sharing your UC experience with us both here, and we had a recent webinar where we picked your brain and got to see that fantastic photo with yourself and Jack. So if you haven't had a chance, jump across and have a look at that as well.
Thanks so much, Mary and Tara, for making this so enjoyable. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with everyone.
Thank you so much, Tom. It has been great to have you here after working with you for a while. It's great to have you on this side of the fence. Now, for everybody, please remember to check out our show notes in the podcast app and check out the webinar and Tom's photo, his selfie with Jack.
And please get in touch if you have any questions or feedback, and you can find us all on LinkedIn, and we do love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, everyone, and happy mapping.
Until next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Bausted Geospatial Group of companies.